everybody, welcome back to the channel. Tonight I'm joined by Pastor Brian, who's normally my cohort in crime on our Infernal Intercourse playlist, and also Steve Hill, a self-described Black atheist Satanist, who's also stand-up comic and political junkie. And tonight we're going to talk a bit about, well, a lot of things, I think, but we're going to start off with a comment that Brian made on the previous video that Steve started in about a dismantling toxic Christian hegemony, which I thought was an interesting topic, but I thought I would give Brian a chance to explain what he meant by that. So,
greetings. It's great to be here with you both. And, you know, one of the things that I struggle all the time, I always say, I get so tired of saying I'm not that kind of pastor and I'm not that kind of Christian. And I struggle all the time with continuing to call myself Christian because of the toxic Christian hegemony, right? So this whole idea, first of all, somehow Christianity gets to police bodies, gets to be sex negative, gets to, to enforce things according to their likes, but of course doesn't ever criticize their likes, you know what I mean? So it's just very self-serving. And of course, in this country, it's been used as a deliberate tool to drive people to the polls so that they will vote for unconscionable terrorist candidates. And so so just in general, politically, the way Christianity is being used, but even among Christianity, you know, I'm a pastor at the church that was founded as the first safe congregation for LGBTQ folks back in 1968. And so the whole idea that churches still today terrorize people, that people are still bullied in the name of the Christian God, that people are that commit suicide because they're told that God hates them and they're going to hell. Just this whole idea that hell is for terrible people and heaven is for these people who consider themselves better than each other, which most of us would not want to be in the place with these people who call themselves Christian. So of course, a Christian pastor is going to be a little nervous dealing with something that calls itself the Church of Satan. But anybody who gets educated realizes that they're doing the exact same work that we progressive Christians are doing, which is to take the lies, the hatred out of the excuse of Christianity in all of our public spheres.
hey, Steve, thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts on that is you're welcome in hell anytime with me. You know, it sounds like you have a deeper level of consciousness than most religious people. I mean, just that you show the capacity to sympathize and empathize with others, and that others being people who are different, people who we've all been made afraid of. Of course, we've all been made of Satan since we were children. So, you know, LGBTQA plus, you know, Black people, African-American, niggers, whatever you call us. We don't know. I have an open mind, but I'm one of those. We need to discuss the N-word too, sooner or later, because no one really wants to openly discuss the N-word. I detest the word. I've been doing comedy over 10 years. I've never said it on stage because I just detest the word that much. But yeah, we need to talk about that too. But you know, you've nailed it. I have no disagreement with you whatsoever. And basically, to sum up, you know, to summarize what I just heard out of your mouth to my ears was that if Christians would be more Christ-like, I think we would have a much more civil society, and there would be much more love in the environment, in the atmosphere, in our jobs, in our workplaces, in our politics. There would be much more love if we all had a better understanding of each other. And it sounds like if all the churches were as you just described, man, I would probably be sitting in church one day. But they're not like that. So
Yep, you're right.
If they can't be like they are, then I'll give Satan a shot. I'll give hell a shot. because from what I see through most of the, especially the right-wing evangelical Christians, is they are a segment of a terror organization, which I call Proud Boys, Ku Klux Klan, Nazi lowriders, any other Aryan Brotherhoods. I mean, I worked in a prison and I'm very familiar with all of these people, white supremacy, all of that. But I had good relationships with those guys in the prison because we treated each other with respect and like human beings. And I always had, respect for them because they treated me like a prison guard with respect. So anyway, yeah, we're getting off the subject, but yeah, if churches could get their shit together, I'd be all for them. Yeah. But it's too many people taking advantage of the weak and the vulnerable. They're actually exploiting those people. And we need to cut that away from the church. Just like the Republican Party, we need to cut away the racists and just leave, as I say, the good white people, the Americans, the ones who believe in what the fuck we're doing here. If we can get those white Americans along with the blacks, Mexicans, Asians, indigenous people, natives, then we would have a beautiful place. I would almost go as far as saying it would be heaven.
Well, I certainly, like I told Martha, I'm probably one of maybe 10 Christian pastors that would be willing to come in public and have this point of view. But honestly, I went to seminaries that, most of us should have received the education that would put us in the same camp with what you're talking about. And of course, that was obvious kind of compared to what you're talking about. Martha and I are both from St. Louis. And when Ferguson happened, those young folks in the front lines, they didn't want to have anything to do with any pastors because pastors had sat in church with all their respectability and told them to pull up your pants and quit sagging and all these things and didn't care that those kids were being abused by police, that those kids were hungry, that those kids, were struggling. And they piled on those kids. And so luckily at Eden Seminary, where I was at the time, our dean told us to go out there and shut up and listen to what they have to say and don't do anything unless the young kids in the front line told us what to do. And so, then I went to, and clergy showed up by the hundreds to those protests when asked. Sometimes they told us to dress like clergy. Sometimes they told us not to be clergy. Sometimes they told us to put our bodies between them and the police. Sometimes they told us, they told us how to be. And we were some of the few clergy that were educated to get it, that we weren't in charge, right? And so that's what Christianity needs to learn. Christianity shouldn't want to and shouldn't be in charge, right? It should serve.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a true ally, being placed in a position where you need it, like between police and black people. That's man, that's beautiful. But let me tell you something, Brian. I'm not only from St. Louis. I was born on the north side of St. Louis at Homer G. Phillip Hospital in 1961, about 2 weeks after President Barack Obama we had very different life path, trust me. The city of St. Louis, north side in the 60s was, it was like where ghettos were born from. All of these uneducated black people from the South coming up to work. And as you know, St. Louis was number 2 after Detroit in the auto manufacturing industry. And a lot of blacks came up to work at the Chevy plant, which was on North Union Street. My auntie lived at 3315 North Union. And Natural Bridge, that's where the Chevy plant was. But a lot of people came up, little education. My auntie was fortunate. She had a high school diploma from Mississippi, and she was able to get on with the post office. And that was like you had benefits and a regular income. So that was like basically striking oil when you're coming from Mississippi, in the 1940s and 50s. But yeah, I left St. Louis when I was 17, going to the Marine Corps. And it was, trust me, it was like going on vacation compared, to where I came from.
I forgot that you're from St. Louis. Thank you for that testimony. I'm born in 70 in Dutchtown on the south side of St. Louis City. And it's true that, like, growing up on the south side, although there were, there was a mix, there were black folk in my neighborhood, there certainly was not mixing between the people, right? And of course, where I grew up, you didn't even go cross highway. You didn't even go like a third of the way up the city, right? That was all considered North City. But I'm different from the guys I grew up with in that they all fled, like during the we call them the crack wars, when the city became unlivable. Anybody that could get away from the neighborhood did, but I chose to stay, and then I ended up moving to Chicago and living on the south side and teaching in the Cook County Jail, and I've worked in the Juvenile Detention Center at St. Louis City and County. And so I think the difference is a lot of people can they think they know black folks, but you know what I mean? And there's a lot that people don't say in front of them, and it's not black people's job to educate them. But if you create a life completely separate from other people, but then still think you have the opinion that should run them, and again, I think a lot of them blame God for their opinion, which they're really talking out of their butt, because to talk about someone else's experience doesn't make any sense. They're the experts, not the white person who has the opinion about it, right? So I do think that there's something about that. And I am very grateful for my training in St. Louis and Chicago that taught me to listen and to try. And I fail all the time. I mean, I'm a racist. I was raised to be a racist. I'm a white man in this country. Every day I have to choose to work against that. But Christianity is intoxicating because it will completely allow you to make God as the racist in chief, and I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah. Donald Trump was the personification of everything that like 74 million white people in America has been waiting on. I mean, something in the flesh, not just something you can go to, something in the flesh that is like everything they ever wanted. And,
Well, and perfectly the idea that Christians fell in line behind Donald Trump and held him up as God's chosen one and as a model of Christianity, when he was so clearly there was nothing Christian about him ever in his life, but maybe there was, right? Because all these other characteristics we're talking about, but certainly there was no relationship between him and any God, much less, the God that Jesus pointed to, right?
Right, and he made it abundantly clear when he first. I think it was still in the primaries when the question was posed to him. How? I'm just paraphrasing, but it was something like, how do you approach God or your religion as it relates to making big decisions? And Trump stated, "I don't ask nobody shit. I do what I want to do." And then, of course, all of his handlers told him, "You can't say that shit." So, and that's when he started, tongue kissing the Bible and, holding it upside down, beating the shit out of people to get him out the way so he can get to the church. All of that, he got schooled on that real quick. And I don't know who his advisors are, but it was a brilliant fucking move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he didn't have to work at it hard because the white supremacist Christians just wanted to hand that mantle to him anyway, because they loved his rhetoric and his hatred and his violence. Like it was everything they dreamed of.
I mean, he was the natural coming of everything that America was established to be. A white Christian, superiority, fucking, this is our country. Like, then you should have picked your own goddamn cotton. You should have not fucking raped the Indians for their land. I mean, if people can't understand this and see this as it relates to religion, and from what I can see, why black people, I get mad at my own race a lot, even though I do all of this shit for my own race, trying to get them to wake up. It's like, you're worshiping the God of the people who used to own you, who brutalized you, who terrorized you, who sold you, who traded you. you know, who raped you, who maimed you, who medically tested their drugs on you. And you're going to worship their fucking God? This shit is asinine, absolutely insane. But yet, it persists in 2021. So I don't know. Maybe you you're a pastor. Maybe you can get a lot of black people together for me. I'll pay you and tell them, knock this shit off.
Well, I don't presume to tell black folks anything, right? Like you know what I mean? I do the work with my white cousins. Yeah.
Go to Ferguson, man.
Well, you know,
hey,
Corey,
I remember.
You go ahead.
Go ahead.
You know, Corey Bush is one of, you know, from that group of folks that I'm talking about, pastors who came from Eden, and now she's in Congress, resisting in all the ways that you can while being in Congress. But she is really.
Oh, I know. Hey, if somebody could get a hold of her for me, I don't know if she's religious. I have no idea.
She's a pastor.
But if somebody could get a hold of her for me, I would really love to talk to her. Ferguson was a place when I was growing up that black people were warned, don't go to Ferguson. They don't like black people in Ferguson. I heard that shit all my life. I heard the same thing about Kirkwood, you know, St. Charles. Stay out of these areas. It used to be Ladue and Olivet, but everything kind of got, you know, urban sprawl. That's what it is. Black people started moving off. Matter of fact, we moved to University City later on in my life, 1968. That was a year of a lot of political unrest, 1968. Yeah. But
around the world.
We moved to University City. Matter of fact, we stayed on the other side of the schoolyard from Nellie's family. Everybody knows Nellie in St. Louis, right? We stayed on the other side of the schoolyard. I used to run with his uncles, who were they were some cool dudes, man. Nobody knows, but they were some cool, you know, they took up for me and all kinds of shit. But I don't know Nellie, but man, maybe you guys can get a hold of Nellie and say, hey, Nellie, let's talk. But you know what? To be honest, I'm so fucking mad at celebrities, because none of our celebrities from St. Louis will say anything about the black condition in St. Louis. They won't question religion. They won't question where we are. You know, I know a lot of people, because I do comedy in Hollywood, Los Angeles, Southern California, all of the country, basically, when there's comedy to be done, when it's not a fucking pandemic. I know a lot of people that know Cedric the Entertainer. And I think on purpose, some people are keeping me away from talking to him because I am such a fucking Satanist.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you'll blow everything. You will blow everything. Cedric, anybody, any fucking famous person, you know, I'd like to know how they feel. I don't think they can tell the truth because it'll cost them too much money.
Well, you bring up something that I've had to deal with. I moved here to El Paso, Texas, right on the border with Juarez, almost 2 years ago now. And I came from Chicago and St. Louis, where race politics was black and white, right? And here I've had to deal with Texas Latinos, right, who are Trumpians. And I deal with a lot of indigenous activists here, and they helped me see that they see it in terms of Caste or caste, right? And there's a new book out. I wish I had it with me right here that I'm reading.
I'll put the link to it.
Where even anti-blackness in our country is being related to a caste thing, and we've heard it described that way just without using that caste term. And so I'm curious, when you moved to California, like you talked about going into the Marines and then to California, where you do have a diversity of people, but how these pecking orders still fall out, right?
Hey, let me tell you, I am so glad you brought this up, because they never asked black people, as a fucking full-blown Americans, as we are supposed to be. They never really asked black people, what do you guys think about immigration? Notice that we don't fucking talk much about that, because it's a really touchy subject. I've been living in the same place in Southern California for 30 years, came here working in a prison, at the prison, state corrections. I've seen how immigration, undocumented workers, they call them illegal aliens. I don't think no human being is fucking illegal. But I've seen how they have increased their numbers. They're second behind in population and demographics behind white people. They have like 5 grocery stores because they have the numbers to sustain these businesses. So it's a lot. So it's a lot of catering done to the Hispanics and very little to Black people, even though they're right behind the Mexican population. But yeah, there needs to be something done about immigration. There actually does. Maybe just slow it down. Maybe if the government would make it easier for people to immigrate, because, you know, I'm sure you guys know history, but this shit used to be Mexico, where I'm living at, California. This shit used to be Mexico. So the way I look at it is they're just taking their country back. I mean, there was no Europeans up and down the West Coast. So yeah, we could talk for a while. I mean, I've got friends who have businesses, Latinos, thriving, successful businesses, and they told me where they purchased their fake documents, Curson Park. They told me where they purchased their documents that basically made them citizens. And, you know, the way I see it is we have American Mexicans, African Americans, citizens who, if it wasn't for the legal, not illegal aliens, but for the legal crossing of the border to come in, to take those jobs where they're being exploited for low wages, if it wasn't for that, then these small businesses would have to pay Americans, Blacks, and Mexicans a certain wage. You know, that market force on wages would go up, and they would do those jobs that no one wants to do. I mean, yeah, we could talk about immigration a lot because there's two sides to it, but you know, these politicians use it to beat the shit out of the other side. You know, we're gonna build a wall and fuck them, keep them out of the country and shoot them and let's put them in fucking cages and wrap them in aluminum foil and put them in the microwave. All kinds of shit like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, yeah, I'm probably more pro immigration than a lot of people. But you know, one thing I think we'll agree on is we have created in South and Central America. We've overthrown governments. We've taught their soldiers how to torture and disappear their people. The church has aligned themselves with the oligarchs instead of the people, right? And so we've created perpetual wars and unbelievable poverty in their nations while we mine their wealth. And so we have created that situation. Why these folks come here desperate to take any salary, right? Because we have created the situation in this hemisphere that makes it impossible for them to survive where they are.
Yeah, I refer to Central America and those countries down there, Nicaragua, Venezuela, all of them, even shit, Barbados, all of them, all of those people down there that are south of the border. I kind of refer to them as victims of America's sphere of influence, because you know, just like Russia and you know the overthrow of the government over there now, and China, you know. You worry about the people in your sphere of influence. And since I can remember, even when I was in the Marine Corps, when Ronald Reagan was, you know, dealing down there with the Sandinistas and Noriega and you know, getting drug deals and running arms. I mean, if people would educate themselves to what the fuck. And then I got out of the Marine Corps, moved to Los Angeles, and became like, you know, entrenched in people around me in the fucking crack wars and drug dealers. And I'm like, what the fuck is, you know, I was working in aerospace, young Marine. ex-Marine, fresh out of the military, and that Central America, those they just want a better life. I mean, isn't that why the Europeans fucking came here? Were they fleeing religious persecution? They wanted a better life. So they came and took the Indians' land to make a better life. But yeah, I understand why they come. It's people being basically disingenuous, man. I know Republicans here. I've run for office several times. They actually put on for the Chamber of Commerce a speech about business, and they did it all in Spanish. You had to wear an electronic device to translate if you spoke English. But the head of their party says, build a wall, get the Mexicans out, build that wall, build that wall. Which one is it?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, and the Christians fell for it. Hate to say, Falwell, all the big mega churches. None of them, I do remember a couple speaking out, and I got to be honest. I do remember some of them saying, "Oh no, you've lost our support," out loud in public. I can't remember who it was, but I know there was at least two. There's like, okay, this is where we get off at. Your ass done going crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that whole toxicity, Martha and I have a series on the TV show Lucifer, which actually is something that we probably could talk about sometime. But, of course, it's based on a comic book, and it's based on like a mythology that serves whatever the agenda of that TV show is.
Right.
But, Martha and I talked a while back about guests on her vlog, and, LaVeyan Satanists seem a little different from like the kind of humanist Satanist that you seem to be a part of. And I loved what you said in the last video. A LaVeyan Satanist to me often feels like they're rebelling against, they're purposely trying to be iconoclastic to the sacred cows of Christianity, right? And there's, I'm not going to say that's wrong either. But I loved what you said last time about choosing Satan, because if you look at the Bible, the God of the Bible isn't such a good guy, right? And at least Satan kind of represents the underdog, right? Who didn't at least mess with you. I thought that was a really interesting way to identify, to take a movement that is pro people and to try and identify as a person who is just automatically vilified by people without thought, right? Because you're trying to make people think. So again, that's what makes, I still would meet with a LaVeyan Satanist and respect their, point of view, but I would be a little more uncomfortable maybe with their characterizations. But someone who is saying we're choosing iconoclastically the person that people automatically, just fall in line to hate without thinking about it, to make people think. I think that was a really powerful part of what you shared in the last video.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm glad you have an appreciation. It's not many people that understand this shit, but I'm glad you do. And the LaVeyan people, the Church of Satan, they get off into a little bit of magic, which I'm not into. I'm not into magic stuff. I'm not. I'm kind of a realist. Show me shit that's real, evidence, research, show me something where you arrived with credible results at this position. So that's why, when I met Lucian Greaves, one of the co-founders of the Satanic Temple, after a little nudging, after me actually being able to open my mind a little bit wider, I decided, yeah, that sounds about right. And they were doing things also from legal perspective, taking people to court, which I absolutely love that idea, because once you stipulate it in court, get it written legislation, get it passed and get it into law, now you're making progress. So yeah, I like the perspective, their advocacy. Yeah, I try to get people to understand that Satan is just a fallen angel, but he is the bringer of light. So I want to bring light, especially to Black people. Open the barn door, let the sunshine come in. You guys will all realize you're actually fucking free. But if you can't emancipate your mind, if someone still has your mind, you're not totally free. 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't really talking to you. 1865, even when they abolished slavery, if you're carrying the religion of the people who used to torture you, and now they set you free, then you're really not free. Still got you. They got you believing in superstition.
That's fascinating because it's the same thing here again on the border, which, the border is, the border crossed them, right? The border wasn't here, as you pointed out. And so, but again, we have a lot of Christian hegemony right here. And again, these are indigenous peoples. El Paso has always been predominantly Latino folks, but now it's like 85% Latino folks. But yet still Christianity is the tool that they use, and even in our missions here, the Indian missions that have their own nations, they're Christian, right? And they celebrate their culture through Christianity. And again, I'm not going to criticize that, but it definitely goes to what you're saying, which is that, man, you at least need to examine that. Now I'll say down here, witchcraft, what we think of as witchcraft or paganism or nature worship or curanderas is also incorporated with it in a lot of places. And I dig that. I come from a background that whether it's psychic or Native American or pagan or whatever, I'm down with that as well. But I do think that there's something imperial, and that's where I struggle. Because I say to myself all the time, is Christianity redeemable, reclaimable, and should it be, right? Like, so I say all the time, is Christianity able to stop being one of the greatest forces for evil in our country and in our world? And if we can change it, should we? Or should we just do away with it, right? Like, I don't know. That's something I struggle with.
Yeah, but there's an element, there's a factor, there's a force in America and any capitalistic society, which is money. You have to look at how money in the church, how it relates to power and strength and manipulation. They use, that's why it's so hard to get rid of religion. You've got a hold of the masses. You've got their mind. And if you've got their mind, you got their money. And this is America. And everything, I don't give a fuck. Everything boils down to money. And you know what comes after that? Sex. You know what comes after that? Drugs and alcohol.
True.
I mean, let's be real. Money drives this country. They're trying to get this goddamn pandemic under control. You know why? They got to go back to making money. They don't want to give people, this lousy ass remaining $1,400. The way I look at it is, if you give everybody $1,000 a week for the next 6 months, we print the money. So who the fuck do we owe? Who do we owe? Jesus? He ain't coming back. Who the fuck do we owe? Print the goddamn money, give it to the people, and keep the economy going.
Amen. Yeah. Well, we transferred $3 trillion to the markets as soon as this economy, started to crash. And they say that's all just on paper. Well, yeah. Well, why can't they transfer 3 trillion people to the people just on paper, right?
I know when the rich people need the price change in the car in the couch, and it's always in the trillions.
Yeah. Hey, just like the mortgage meltdown. And I was on the front row seat of that shit as the real estate appraiser. Just like the mortgage meltdown. Them motherfuckers started writing checks. Obama, nobody went to jail, but they started writing checks. Citicorp, Countrywide, Chase, B of A, Morgan, Great Western, all the banks, lending institutions. They started cutting checks. How much property that you motherfuckers lose. Let me help you out. But anything where it comes to giving to workers, oh, hell no. Now, watch. The Republicans are going to be concerned about the deficit. Watch. It's coming.
Right. Yeah, but they sure won't repeal those tax cuts that they created.
No. Like they say in the Department of Corrections, when you give the inmates something, it's hard to take it back from them. Yeah. Same case. Those tax cuts are with us.
It's a great conversation. You know, it's funny politically. Again, well, I'm a rare pastor in that I believe everything is political. Jesus is political. The Gospels are political. So often people will say pastors can't be political. Now, there is a law in church that I can't endorse a candidate. But other than that, you know, I'm free to be political, and I feel like it would be not doing my job if I wasn't political, right? Like because Jesus was political. So if nothing else, but also in this country,
all you gotta do is go to Black church.
Yeah,
go
in this country, there's so much injustice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, you know, when I was in Chicago, this was a very open secret, but a lot of politicians, you know, would curry favor with certain big mega church pastors.
Yeah,
right?
They're going there and give them a donation. Let me come speak to your flock, your bunch of dummies.
Yeah, there's a great video that came out about the Chicago election where Lori Lightfoot just won. But, you know, it's documenting the whole process, so you don't know who's going to win. And there's even one whole section where the same candidate keeps going to church week after week after week, and then announcing he just gave them $10,000, whatever. Because it's like an open secret, man.
And people don't understand how the media also extorts politicians. I had it happen to me. The press, the media, straight out told me, you know, you ain't gonna get no coverage if you don't buy ads for the paper or give us money.
Yep.
And they didn't cover me. They didn't. But I figured out ways to get free media, so it was okay.
Well, and you know, and they couldn't cover Donald Trump enough when he was running for president, right? Like, I mean, talk about the free publicity he got nonstop when he was running for president.
Well, that's because so much of America wanted to hear what he had to say, because he was basically singing their tune. He was like, the Pied Piper fucking playing fucking the fiddle, something. And it was so many people who were like, ooh, did he just say he don't like Mexicans and blacks? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, he was like the Pied Piper, man. He led everybody to the polls.
Well, I appreciate the work that you all do. Like I said, I really do try and do the same work. And really one of the few reasons, you know, I'm born in Christianity, and that's the context, right, that I had to use. But they asked me about ordination. They said, well, why would you want to be ordained when you think that we're too clerical and, you know, we have all these problems? I said, well, because that's the only way that I'm going to have enough influence and voice to undo this is right. To do it. But it is something, like I said, I know I have friends that would also be willing to listen and talk to you. And I know I have friends that admire what your organization does. But it is a hard uphill battle with Christianity. And I often despair in it. I have to admit I do.
Yeah, that's, man, the words you speak is probably the sole reason I am looking so forward to putting a concentrated effort into doing this comedy special, because you can reach a lot of people with laughter. Probably can't reach that many people running around telling people you're a black Satanist, but maybe if you're a black Satanist that tells maybe if you're a black Satanist that tell jokes, maybe you can reach somebody.
It's the one thing that'll get people to stop listening quicker than when I tell them I'm a gay Christian pastor.
Hey, we rowing in the same boat.
Yeah, black Satanist trumps that. Yeah, pretty much.
Right. I mean, come on, man. Shit, people want to tase me right off the bat.
Yeah, it's sad but true, man. Sad but true.
Okay, well, I'm going ahead and say that was really fascinating. I was pretty sure that if I got these two together, that they would talk and I would not really have to do anything because they're such interesting people. And I hope maybe they'll come back again and we can just discuss some of these subjects another time. So in the meantime, thanks to Steve and Brian. And if you like this video, remember to hit like and subscribe and the little bell notification so you know when I put up more videos. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, I just want to put a little addendum on this video to show some books that you might want to check out if these topics that we're talking about interest you. Now this is the book that was mentioned in the interview there. So Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson, who also wrote Warmth of Other Suns, which is another good book. I don't happen to have a copy right here. But if you remember Steve talking about his ancestors moving to St. Louis from other places, Warmth of Other Suns is the book that covers a lot of that migration of blacks to northern cities. But this, again, is that talk about caste that Brian brought up. If you read no other book, though, I think this is the one you really should check out, The New Jim Crow. This is a fascinating book. I have a few things marked in there so I could go back and look at them again later. But this is a very, very good book. And I said, if there's only one, you only time to read one book on these subjects, this is the one. However, there are others. How to Be an Anti-Racist, also a very valuable book. The Color of Law, which will take you through a lot of the ways that black population in the United States has been oppressed by various laws in various places. St. Louis, one of those places. So also a very interesting book. Policing the Black Man, another interesting book. This one is a collection of essays, so you can skip around in it, and read shorter pieces if that's the way you need to read. White Fragility, another interesting book. White people have a tendency not to want to talk about racism. Here's a book to talk about that. And I seem to have lost a dust jacket on this book, so I'll show you the spine, but White Rage is another book that you might want to check out. So a lot of good books out there on these topics. If you want to look at them, definitely they're worth picking up. So I will put a link to some of them in the description, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.